All right. The Respiratory Therapist and Polysomnographic Technologist Licensing Board meeting is convening at 9:03 a.m. on April 24th, 2025. This meeting is being held in person and through MS Teams video conferencing and is being recorded. The recording will be posted to the internet for public viewing. I will now call roll call. Michael Erickson, Chairperson.
He's absent today.
Okay. Myself is here. Richard Burton, Vice Chairperson, here. Daryl Tony White.
Here.
Michael Lefor.
Also absent.
Harry Kaufman.
Here.
Alan Roth.
Here.
And Mario Luera.
Here.
Thank you. Members, when you wish to speak, please state your last name for the record. Board members are asked to not to use the chat feature during meetings. The Health Licensing Office, HLO, asks that individuals attending through MS Teams keep their phones muted and cameras off during the entire meeting or until they are given an opportunity to comment during the public and interested parties feedback period, if indicated on the agenda. Public comment is limited to matters listed on the meeting agenda or topics relevant to what the board has statutory authority to regulate. Public members wishing to speak, please sign in on the roster sheet available in the room or email Josh Page at josh.page@oha.oregon.gov and provide your first and last name. Everyone that is asked to use appropriate language, manners, and protocols when conducting board business.
Excellent. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, members of the board, Bob Bothwell again, Director of Health Licensing Office. The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. So what we will need is one member other than the current chair to make a motion to approve the agenda, and then we will need a second.
All right.
Tony Wait, move to approve.
And a second.
Board member Burton moves to approve.
Okay, Chair, we have a first and a second. Can you please call the roll?
I'm sorry?
Please call roll again for approval of the agenda.
Oh, absolutely. Board member Daryl Tony Waite.
Approve.
And Carrie Kaufman.
Approve.
Alan Roth.
Approved.
Mario Luera.
Approved.
And board member Burton approved.
Excellent. Thank you. Chair, members of the board, this is Bob Bothwell again. Next item on the agenda are some introductions. We have some new board members. So Mario, could you introduce yourself if you're able to come on camera so we can put a face with the name and tell us a little bit about you? And you're muted, or we can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Good morning. My name is Mario Luera. I have just a new member of the board. I've been working in sleep for 23 years now, and just glad and excited to be here.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay.
Alan?
I am a retired respiratory therapist for 4 years, and I'm glad to be here to give my insights for the profession.
Excellent, thank you. And Sammy's not in the room right now, but Sammy is our policy analyst. She's been with the office 28 years. And she's your analyst for this program, and she's had this program for the 13 years that I have been here. So my name is Bob Bothwell again, Director at the Health Licensing Office. I've been here 13 years, and I started in the regulatory division before becoming the director. And prior to that, I had 20 years with the Oregon Department of Corrections, doing internal affairs and other types of investigations. And I see on the screen our council. Kristen, can you introduce yourself real quick, please?
Hi, I'm Kristen Williams. I'm the legal counsel for this board and part of Health Licensing Office. I work for the Oregon Department of Justice.
Thank you. Richard, you share a little bit about yourself for the new members, please.
Okay, yeah. This is my second board meeting. My name is Richard Burton, and I'm a registered respiratory therapist here in Oregon, and former firefighter and EMT. And I'm here to serve the board and respiratory therapists and polysomnographic technologists here in Oregon.
Thank you. Daryl?
Well, I wasn't prepared for that. My name's Daryl Waite. I manage respiratory therapy out at Coquille Valley Hospital. Been in the career field for 40-ish years. Retired military, retired out of California, came up to Oregon to enjoy the weather.
Okay. Gary?
Good morning. I'm a respiratory therapist of over 28 years, have done neonatal adult critical care supervisor, and now am the educator for the Asante Health System in Southern Oregon.
Excellent. And then two last HLO staff members that you all will eventually have contact with. We have Chrissy Pickett.
Chrissy Pickett, I'm executive assistant. I do a lot of the board member recruiting and just general overall good help.
And Josh.
I'm Josh Page. I'm the board specialist, so I'm the one that is in communication with you guys regarding board meetings and all that stuff.
And Sammy, I already introduced you. Is that okay? Okay, introductions. Done. Next item on the agenda are the reports. Scroll to that. Scroll to it, flip pages to it, since I don't have a computer in front of me. And the first item of my reports are the board membership, which I'll go real quick. Tony's in his first term, and that term expires September 3rd, 2028, and Tony can reappoint. Richard also is in a first term. It expires February 15th, 2028, and can reappoint. Michael Erickson is in a first full term. Erickson. He's still in here?
Yeah, it's just not.
Oh, okay, my bad. Michael Erickson is in a first term. It expires May 31 of 2025. Eric Hoffman is in a first term, and that expires September 30, 2028, and can reappoint. Dr. LaFleur is in a third or fourth term now, not present, but he's serving until replaced. Yeah. But again, he is serving until replaced. Mario Loera, welcome, is in a first term, and that expires February 28, 2029, and of course can reappoint. And Alan Roth, also first term, and it expires February 28, 2029, and Alan can reappoint. Since everybody's relatively new, I'm going to cover the training that's required for each board member. Some of it is annually, and some of it is each time you renew your term. The first one, and you'll find this in your materials, is the overview of boards and commissions training that is required once per term. Department of Administrative Services, information security training that is required annually. The DAS, human resource preventing discrimination and harassment, that's required annually. There's the Oregon government ethics overview of Oregon ethics law that is optional, but there has been some changes with the ethics division, so I recommend taking that training. Also, with regards to the ethics, one of the changes that they have, and I haven't said this for a long time, is They have new rules that came about in October of 2024, and one of the things that, and you wouldn't have noticed it, but a change in the scripts where it talks about, we'll only discuss things related to the profession or things that are on the agenda. We were required to put on our website a portal for someone to, not a portal, but a link for someone who thinks that there was a violation by a board member with regards to the Oregon ethics law, where they can file a complaint. And we have 30 days, well, they have 20 days, I believe it is, to file a complaint from the day of the actual violation. And there's a 30-day window for HLO to respond, and then ethics can take over and do their investigation, whatever it looks like. There've been a number of cases so far that they have gone back and issued orders on, but at this point in time, they're considering everything's new. They're just recommending training. That's why one of the reasons I recommend taking their ethics course that is highlighted in your materials. So you can not be a part of any Oregon ethics complaints. HLO, in conjunction with our DOJ partners, run a pretty tight ship, pretty tight ship when it comes to our executive sessions or our board meetings. So, of course, we will do everything we can to protect our board members, ensure that we're all on the same page and following ethics. Any questions with regards to ethics? Okay, moving on to the next slide, which is the fiscal report. We have had, since everybody's relatively new, let me say this first. We run on a fiscal year cycle, and that is July 1 of any particular year to June 30 of the following year. So we are in quarter 3 of 2024, and we have had 27 new respiratory therapist license issued and 2 polysomnography license issued. License renewals for a respiratory therapist. You're following along. You can see that the majority of the professionals renew online, which is a great saving time for HLO. There's a few that still do it by paper. 323 did online and 7 on paper. Polysomnography, pretty much the same. The vast majority renew online. And 26 have renewed online and 6 by paper still. Respiratory therapists, active licenses by age and gender. That's a good mix of those identify as female and male and other. And we still have some licenses out there for professionals ranging in age 74 to 81, total of 10 licenses. A total of 2,112 licenses. Polysomnography, again, a good mix. We have 3 individuals between age of 74 and 81, still maintaining a license. And there's a total, this report was run of 272 licensed polysomnography professionals in Oregon. Licensing trends on the next slide, they go up and they go down. That's probably recycle time, not recycle, renewal timeframes. And in quarter 3, there's 2,000, average of 2,142, and that is climbing. Polysomnography, there's been a downturn. Quarter 3 of 2025, and there's an average of 272 polysomnography professionals licensed. The next slide are the exam stats. So in 2025, in the third quarter, we've had 3 pass the poly-som exam, 1 fail. And in that same time frame, we have had 16 RTs take the laws and rules, and all 16 have passed. Any questions so far on those reports? Okay, seeing no hands up. The next slide are your financials. And in 2025, we had beginning cash balance for your board of 67,267 in the negative. We've taken in revenues of 182,627, expenditures of 164,620, and net operations $18,007 with an any cash balance of 49,260. And that's in the rears as well. And as if you're looking at your report, you can see that the any cash balance all the way back to 2021, there were the board was $108,790 in the rears, and you can see that we slowly are climbing our way out of it. Any questions? Okay. Next item on the agenda is the regulatory report. Is Trampus on there?
I'm here.
Morning, Trampus.
Morning. So I'm Trampus Shuck. I'm the regulatory manager, and I'm here to talk today about the regulatory report. So since we've got a couple of new board members, I'll kind of go over it in a little more detail so they can kind of get the gist of what we're looking at here. So when you look at the regulatory report, you see 3 boxes. The first one is cases open and closed status. And it's a breakdown of the open cases kind of in general numbers. So if the biennium has some open cases, it shows up on this report. So we've got 2 bienniums showing up on this report, which is the 2023 biennium and then the 2025 biennium. The 2025 biennium goes through June 30th of 2025. So it's got a couple of months left to go. So these numbers that you're seeing here are partial compared to the last biennium that you're seeing, the 2023 biennium. So as you can see in the 2023 biennium, we had 24 cases come in, and 6 of them are still open to some degree. And then we have the 2025 biennium. You can see 20 cases have come in, but like I said, we still have a couple of more months to go, so we could see that number change a little bit. Currently, 15 of those are still open. So for the grand totals, you see 44 cases came in for the 2 biennium, and 21 are still currently open. Little side note about what these terms all mean. Open and closed seem pretty straightforward terms, but they do, you do have to draw a line somewhere in the process of working a case to say when it's open and when it's closed. So when a case comes in, we receive a complaint against a respiratory therapist or polysomnographer. So we get that complaint that comes, or an unlicensed person. We get that complaint that comes in, and we look at it and we see if there's any kind of jurisdiction that the health licensing office has or the board of respiratory therapist has. So we'll look at that and we'll say, okay, we look like on the face of this complaint, if everything in here is true, there's a potential violation. So then we will open that case and we'll give it to an investigator to investigate. And that investigator will go through the investigative process. They'll ask for records, do interviews, things like that, gather information, and then when they feel they're done with that, they'll submit the report to me. If we look at that initial complaint and go, this isn't our jurisdiction. This is really a nurse or something like that, or this is this just isn't something we have jurisdiction over. It was a employee dispute or something like that. We may say, well, this doesn't rise to the level of being able to. We don't have any jurisdiction, so we're going to close this case. And at that time, we close the case. It wouldn't go to an investigator. At any time throughout the process, the investigator, like I said, feels that all their resources are completed and they still don't see any violations, they can close it or ask or talk about closing it. So it's kind of this process. You get to the end, there's a report. we look at the report. I look at the report. If there's nothing there, if there's no violations, the things in the complaint weren't true, or weren't able to gather enough evidence to say that they were true, it may just close out at that point. And at that point, it would close. It would go from that top box to the bottom box. But at any time there's any ambiguity, or we do think there was a violation, that's when we're going to bring that, we're going to hold that case off to the side, and we're going to bring it to the board. You'll be looking at a case in executive session that needs board review. So if there's any kind of potential violation, or there's any kind of, or we really feel strongly there is, it's going to come to the board. And the board will decide what they're going to do, and they may just close it, or they may ask for something to happen, like a disciplinary action. Once that disciplinary action actually goes out, that's when it moves to close. So you see there's kind of different lines about how that plays out, but that's the general investigative process, just kind of an overview for the new board members and a refresher for the old ones. So that's kind of how those things flow on this chart. The complaints by type, you can see it's the middle box. It gives us some idea about what kind of the broad categories of the cases that are coming in. So you can see we got critical complaint regarding licensing, we got licensing concern, mandatory reporting, service provided, and unassigned. So that unassigned could just be it was a brand new case. It hasn't, well, there's two unassigned. That's probably it's probably an error. I'll have to look and see what that is. But licensing concerns could be somebody's just unlicensed. It could be that they're inactive. Somebody complained that somebody was inactive or something like that, and we would look into that and find out what's going on. Could also mean that they had an issue, a non-disclosure on an application. It could be any kind of thing like that. Just something that has to do with licensing. Mandatory self-reporting is when kind of straightforward. It means when somebody reported themselves for a problem that they had. Maybe they had a problem, unprofessional conduct violation at their employment or something like that, and they're reporting that to us. Or maybe they had a conviction, a criminal conviction, or a felony arrest or something that caused them to have to report to us. Services provided is kind of the broad sweeping thing. That's where like somebody is alleged to have done something wrong in their practice. And then so you can see the same grand totals from the other one. And then complaints by type, you got anonymous, which is, we just don't know who filed the complaint. We got by clients, which is kind of non-existent in this situation. Not very many respiratory therapy actual clients file. I have seen them over the years, but apparently not in the last couple of years. We haven't had any. And then other is just somebody else. Could be anybody. It could be the hospital, it could be the employer, and that's probably where a lot of our type of services cases come, is from like employers or something. They're feeling like they need to report. So it's not a mandatory self-reporter, but they feel they're a mandatory reporter in that there may be a respiratory therapist and they need to report this other respiratory therapist who maybe worked for them or something like that. That's a kind of common path. So as you can see, that's the regulatory report, and that's kind of an overview of the regulatory process. Does anybody have any questions about the regulatory process or these reports or anything like that in general?
I do. This is Bob.
Okay.
Hey, so can you talk a little bit about subject matter experts? Because I want the board to be aware that we are not respiratory therapists, or we're not professionals in any of our boards, but we use a subject matter expert. So you want to cover that real quick, Travis?
Yeah, thank you, Bob, for reminding me, because I had thought about that earlier when I was talking, and then I got to talking and I went away from it. So yeah, so what we like to have is, none of us are respiratory therapists at the health licensing office. We are tasked with regulating this profession, and we rely on the board a lot to help us with that task. But during investigations, it's often helpful for our investigators to have a resource that they can just go to, and they can look at the case and help us with all of the expertise that they need to be able to understand, what is a standard, what is a violation of this particular group. So that's where our subject matter expert comes in. We had a subject matter expert on contract for a while with this board, but that person came off contract and didn't renew their contract, and we are in the process of getting actually an old SME back to come back and back on contract. So we didn't have an SME for a little bit, but we're going to have an SME here probably in the next couple of weeks back online, and we'll be able to use him as a resource. So yeah, subject matter experts are important especially for groups that are highly technical like this one, where our investigators are experts at investigating, but not necessarily experts in the practice of respiratory therapy. And so they help us along the way with just understanding the complaint, understanding the records that we get, understanding the practice standards in general. Sometimes they go to interviews, actually are involved in the interviews. Other times they're just back reviewing or giving advice to the investigator about what the types of things they're going to be looking for in the investigation. And then they usually will give us an SME report that would give us their opinion, and that way the board doesn't have to digest every little thing. They can kind of hopefully rely on that opinion a bit to help help the process move forward. So,
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any questions for Travis? All right. Seeing none, moving on to the policy update.
This is Sammy, mine will be very short. We are currently in legislative session and there's lots happening with HLO. The only thing that would really affect this board, and not even really affect you, but we might be getting a new program that would increase the number of programs to 20 and then therefore increase the number of people that we license. So that's really the only one in the HLO atmosphere that would affect you guys. Otherwise, we don't have anything else. Also, Tony, myself, and Kristen were tasked with working on some language for the vascular access device placement procedure. And it's on hold right now. So until after legislative session. And once that's done, then I'll reassess and get back together with Tony and Kristen and work on that. I just didn't want anyone to think it was forgotten about. It's not forgotten. That's all I have.
Okay.
Any questions?
All right. If none, Chair, do you have a script for public and district parties feedback?
I do. Hold on. The feedback, I'm looking for that right now. And okay. All right. At this time, the Respiratory Therapist and Polysomnographic Technologist Licensing Board will hear public and interested parties' feedback. Public comment is limited to matters listed on the meeting agenda or topics relevant to what this board has statutory authority to regulate. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes and will not be allowed if they are disruptive to the board's conduct of business. If you are called on to comment, HLO staff will request the public member to unmute themselves. The chairperson and HLO reserve the right to end the person's comment early and have HLO staff mute the public member if the comment does not pertain to matters listed on the meeting agenda or topics relevant to what this board has statutory authority to regulate. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment? If so, please raise your hand or use MS Teams to raise your hand feature and wait to be acknowledged at this time. I don't hear anyone from the public that's on right now.
I got nothing and I see no hands up.
It's Tina H.
Okay, seeing none, for public and interested parties feedback, Chair, if you are ready, we need to do some changeover here and, but you can read us into executive session in a second. Just so I get ready myself.
You have to check it out.
Okay. Sheriff, you could read us into executive
I'll
session,
take it
please?
back when we.
Yeah.
The respiratory therapist and polysomnographic technologist licensing board will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602F and ORS 676.595 for the purpose of considering information or records that are exempt by law from public disclosure. 9:33 a.m. on April 24th, 2025. Representatives of the news media shall be allowed to attend the executive session. Audience members attending through MS Teams will now be moved into a separate breakout room, and audience members attending in person are asked to leave the room, both for the duration of the executive session. Those authorized to attend the executive session, please continue to keep your phone muted and cameras off. Are there any representatives of the news media on MS Teams?
Seeing none, Chair.
All right, that is a no. Recognizing there is no news media in attendance, the public will be moved into a separate breakout room for the duration of the executive session. We will return to open session before taking any final action or making any final decisions. It is estimated that the board will return to public session at 10:34 a.m. Please be aware that it is possible that the board's executive session may last longer than 1 hour or at 10:34 a.m. If the public has any questions about whether the board is still in executive session, then the public can contact Josh Page at josh.page@oha.oregon.gov. We are now in executive. Board member Richard Burton, the respiratory therapist and polysomnographic technologist licensing board will now exit executive session and reconvening open session at 11:10 a.m. No final decisions were made and no votes were taken in executive session. The public will be moved from the breakout room back into the meeting, and representatives of the media will once again report all board sessions and actions.
Okay. Chair, members of the board, this is Bob. In case number 241128, a motion to deny the application. I need someone to so move and then a second.
Board Member Tony, move to approve.
Board member Richard Burton, I second.
Chair, you cannot, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Board member Kaufman, I approve.
Okay.
Second.
Chair, if you, second, thank you. And Chair, if you can do a roll call, please.
Yes. Board member Daryl Tony Waite,
Move to deny.
board member Carrie Kaufman,
Move to deny.
board member Alan Roth,
Move to deny.
board member Mario Luera,
Move to deny.
and board member Richard Burton. I move to deny.
Okay, thank you. That motion passes. And in case number 24211144, a motion has been made to continue investigation in that case number. I can get someone to say so moved and then a second.
Board
So
member
moved.
Kaufman, so moved.
Carrie, Alan Roth said so moved before you. Would you like to second it?
I would like to second that.
Very much. Chair, if you can call roll, please.
Board member Daryl Tony Waite,
Move to approve.
board member Carrie Kaufman,
Move to approve.
board member Alan Roth,
Move to approve.
board member Mario Luera,
Move to approve.
board member Richard Burton. I move to approve.
Okay. Excellent. Let me find my agenda here.